In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build a custom AI assistant that can be triggered from anywhere and that can perform any action you want. Let's give it a test. Set a reminder today at 3 p.m. to message Jimbo. This is now going to add a calendar event to my calendar. It's going to send me a reminder 5 minutes before. It's going to show me natively that the reminder has been set. And in my Telegram bot feed, it's going to show me that I have set that reminder. Now I can trigger it also from Telegram. So I'm going to send it a message that is not a reminder, it's just a task, and it's going to add the task to my Google Tasks, and it's going to show me that it's done that by responding with this. Now the third action we can do is getting a summary. So I can head back here and I can say, give me a summary of everything I need to do today. Now what this is going to do is it's going to get all the events for today. It's going to get all my uncompleted tasks. It's going to show me here, and I can even include links to these tasks or the calendar event. Let's get into the tutorial. It's awesome. You're going to love it. Stay focused. The first thing is, if you haven't set up N8N, I do have tutorials on that inside Low Code Masters. You can set it up basically for free, and it allows you to run unlimited automations, unlimited scenarios. So let's add a new workflow. And I'm going to call this 𝗖𝗍 tutorial. And you can call it whatever you want to call your little assistant. So first things first, remove this and let's add a on webhook call. We're going to make this a post request, and this is going to listen for the post request that we're going to send after we dictate in shortcuts, which I didn't even know was possible, that you can send post requests from Apple shortcuts, and it's blowing my mind. So if you want more tutorials on that, let me know. But we've just got this post method here, and I'm just going to keep the path very generic. You can make this something a little bit more specific, like low code assistant or whatever your business is called, assistant. And we'll leave authentication off now for just ease of use, but you can authenticate these calls, which means if somehow your webhook URL gets leaked, not anyone can just start calling your webhook. You can actually make sure that it's an authenticated request. And we can leave this as respond immediately for now, because at the end we're going to say we want to use it respond with a respond to webhook node. But let's leave this for now. So we've set up this little test, and then what we want to do is, now that we've set this up, we want to just click this to copy it. And for now, we're going to jump into shortcuts. Now, if you don't have shortcuts, then you probably need to upgrade your iPhone or Mac OS, because I'm pretty sure everyone has it. And it's this application here. So if we click shortcuts, this allows us to create essentially automations on our MacBook, on our iPhone, anything like that. And I didn't really know this existed because I haven't played with it until like yesterday, actually. And it's very cool. It's like a mini version of N8N or Zapier or Make within your own computer, and it's way more powerful than I thought. So in this case, we just want to create a new one, and I'm just going to call this tutorial test. That's fine. And the first thing we want to do is add a little node called dictate text. Okay, so this is going to, when we trigger this shortcut, it's going to just listen to what we say and turn it into words. So we're going to dictate text. Then what we're going to do is add get contents of URL. Now they don't name this very well. This essentially means perform a get request, perform a post request, or whatever it is. So this is what was blowing my mind. So we don't want to get contents of dictated text. So we can clear that. We do want to get contents of that test URL. Okay, so this is going to be webhook-test. And we're going to set this up. So the method is going to be post. We don't need any headers because we didn't set up authentication, but if you did set up authentication, you could use authorization bearer and then your token that you create. But in the message, in the body, sorry, we're going to add an item, and this is going to be message. And then the message, we're going to right click, insert variable, dictated text. So this is going to be the dictated text. And what we can do is just test this to make sure it's working. Okay, so we're going to dictate text, and then we're going to immediately fire off this post request to this webhook. So let's test this. Now it's listening, it's waiting. We can go back here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pin this to my menu bar. So now when I click shortcuts, I can fire off this test. So I'll click it, and I just got to think of something to say. It doesn't really matter, but let's just go with it. Create a reminder for 4 p.m. tomorrow to buy a new MacBook. And it's going to say, hey, do you want to allow this shortcut to do certain things, like send a post request or do whatever? And you just click always allow. And if we check back here, we can see that we got the message. So that's the first very cool thing. And then what we want to do is, after this, we want to basically start standardizing the schema of the responses, because the webhook is going to send the information in one way and Telegram will send it in another. But really what we want is just the message. We don't want all the extra data. We don't really need it. So if we check back here, you can see that the next step that I'm doing is basically standardizing the schema. So I'm saying the message variable is going to be the JSON body message, and the trigger is going to be shortcuts. Now, trigger is just differentiating between Telegram and shortcuts. The reason we do that is because at the end, if it's triggered by a shortcut, we can send a response, which gives us that little notification. But if we triggered it by Telegram, we actually filter that out because there's nothing to respond to. So that's what we do next. And this little node is if you just search for set, we're just going to set some fields. So here we can say message, and then we can find where the message is and drag it over here. And then we're just going to say trigger is, and we're going to hard code this in, shortcuts. And if you test this step, you'll see that it's just the message is this and the trigger is this. So we've kind of simplified it and standardized it. And now we have data that we can use throughout the rest of the application. So one thing you should be doing is naming these as you go. So this is trigger shortcuts, and then we're doing the schema shortcuts. I'm not going to do that now. You can, if you're part of Low Code Masters, you can actually copy and paste this entire thing and get it up and running very quickly. And you can also look at the, and it would name everything for you. But for now, we'll just kind of do it on the fly if we need to. But just remember to keep everything organized, because when you come back to these workflows, it helps, especially if you have a lot of them. So we're triggering the webhook, we're getting the fields, and then as you can see here, what we're doing is we're combining either of these into a schema. So what I'll do is I'll add this additional set, and we're just going to add the message, the current date, and the trigger. Now I'm just going to copy this so I don't have to do it again. And so now we're saying we'll do another set, and I will name this, I'll just say schema. And you'll see why we're doing this in a minute. So we've got message, and this is just going to be the message from the previous node. And then we're going to add trigger, and this is going to be the trigger of the previous node. And then we're going to add current date. And this is going to be an expression. And what I'm going to do here is set the current date as the correct time zone that I'm in. Because if you just press now, if you leave this plus and whatever out, it will set it to the default time of the server that this N8N instance is running on. And I don't want that. I want my local time. So for like the local time now is 1:30 basically PM. And so what I'm doing is I'm getting now, and I'll show you what happens if I remove this. If I do now, it says it's 11:30 the day before. So that's incorrect. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add 14 hours. That gets me my correct GMT time zone, and we're good to go. So at the moment, this looks pretty redundant because we're just setting the same thing. But what we want to do is we want the Telegram to also feed into this. And so we're going to make sure that these two schemas are the same, and then this will be able to actually consolidate and get data from either option. So now what we're going to do to set up Telegram is we're going to create a little Telegram bot. And it seems intimidating, but it's actually very easy because Telegram has something called the bot father. Now I'm using Telegram, but you could use Slack, you could use iMessage, you could use any service. It doesn't really matter. I just like Telegram. It's very quick, it's very fun to use, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So you jump into Telegram and you just create a new Telegram account if you don't have one. And then you want to start a chat with the bot father. So you can search for bot father and start a chat. So if you go new message, search for bot father, and basically he'll guide you through the whole thing. What we want to do is create a new bot. So this is from a previous conversation, but you can just create a new bot. And all right, a new bot. How are we going to call it? So you need to tell it what you want to call your little robot. And so I'm going to say, I want to call it low code N8N tutorial. Not very concise, but I'm going to delete this after. All right, now let's create a username. So this needs to be a formatted username. So here we can say low code underscore N8N tutorial bot. So you need bot in the end of the name. It needs to know that it's a bot. So we create low code N8N tutorial bot, and it goes, great, your bot's done. So that's all it takes to actually create a Telegram bot. And it's going to give you a access token. And you need this because back in N8N, we're going to set this up. So we copy this and we go back to here, and I'm going to add a new trigger, and I'm going to search on app event. I'm going to search for Telegram and on message. Now there's different ways you can set it up, but I'm just saying whenever this bot receives a message, trigger it. And then we're going to do some checks to make sure that the message is from us and it's from a specific chat. So here, I'm not going to connect with my existing. I'm going to create a new credential. And this is where you paste the access token. So here, I'm going to call this the low code N8N tutorial bot, and we click save, and it should be good to go, and it says connection tested successfully. Beautiful. So what do we do now? Well, we can test it. So we test the step, and then what we're going to do is message that bot. So we go back to our Telegram, and it says, okay, you'll find it here. Great. So there's no messages. I'm going to click start, which is just going to send a random command, but we don't really need the commands. What we do need is this. So now it's generated all of the information we need. So what we want to get is the chat ID. So we'll use that later. We don't actually need that now. We just need to do what I was doing before, which is setting up the schema and that sort of stuff. So we've set up this. Cool. Now we need to do the same here. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it. And we just connect the two. And here, message is not going to be the previous thing. It's going to be text. Okay, so we find what the message was and we set that as the text. And this time, the trigger is going to be Telegram. Okay, so we can test this step and we're good to go. Now, the beauty of this is that these variables are the same as what we set up here. So now, regardless of whether it's our shortcut dictation trigger or our Telegram trigger, if we connect this here, it's going to be able to accurately map the values. Okay, so you can see here, this is actually from Telegram. And if we test it, the message is null, but it should work. Why is the message null? Oh, we didn't test this. And if we test this, okay, why is message null? JSON message. Text start. Let me test this again. And I'll just message the bot again. So I'll say, please remind me today at 2 p.m. to do X. So we jump back here and we do have that text. And then here, maybe I didn't set this properly. I should have. And if I test that, it's got the message. Oh, I know why. If I test this, okay. This is a little bit annoying, but I guess it's good that we're going through it now. To test this, you actually have to disconnect it from the other triggers because it's saying, well, hey, there was nothing set here, so it's setting it as null. So if we detach that for now temporarily and we test it, we'll get the correct results. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you can set this up, test that it works, and then disconnect it and set this up, test that it works, and you can leave this one connected. And then when you're ready to go, you just reconnect it. That's all you have to do. So a little bit annoying, but maybe there's a better way around it. I don't know. So we've essentially set up the triggers correctly. And now what we want to do is we want to determine what automation to run after this based on the content of the message. So if we jump back here, we see, okay, we've set up the triggers and I didn't actually add that filter, which we should. So I'm going to do that now. And here I'm just saying if the username is my username and the chat message is equal to my chat ID. So let's do the same. I'm going to copy this, come back here, and I'm going to basically disconnect this for now, hook it up, and then I'm going to only continue if it's true. So I'm dragging the true. And what we need to do is we need to have a look here and get the chat ID. And we need to paste it here. In this case, it's the same. And that actually should be good to go now. So if we test this again, it's listening, and I'm just going to paste this again. We send, and then we can test this, and you can see it's true, and we can test this and it's working, and then we test this. So now we've validated that our bot is only going to trigger this automation workflow if the message is from us. So that's pretty important. There might be other ways to lock it down, but yeah, for now that works. So we've set this up, and we've set up the triggers. And now what we need to do, like I said before, is basically just determine what to do. So we're going to use AI to determine the best path to take. And the way we do this is by adding a classification node. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to click Advanced AI, and I'm going to select a text classifier. Now I'll leave this for now, and I'm just going to hook this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach to this agent, if you will, this node, the model that I want to use to actually determine this. So here I'm just going to insert a OpenAI chat model, and if you want to add your own, you can create a new credential, get your API key, and this will all be found in OpenAI, and then paste it here, and then your credentials will be set and you'll be able to use OpenAI node. But for now, what I'm going to do is just select probably something fast. We don't need, it's not too complex here what we're doing, so we can set something fast and we're good to go there. And so we're using OpenAI to basically run this particular function. So the text we want to classify is the message. Okay, so we're going to classify this message, and then we need to add some categories. So these are like the outcomes that you want it to select, and it won't select anything else. It won't add additional text. It'll just give you exactly what you want most of the time without you having to over-engineer the prompt. Now, the way they do that, I'm not sure. The way they do that is they basically pre-configure the prompt, and I forget how to actually view that. But basically N8N has written its own prompt to get it to classify these things. So anyway, now we just add the categories that are essentially the outcomes that we want it to decide based on the message. So we just add a category, and this will be reminder. This will be task, and this will be a summary. And I'm just going to copy what I wrote here. So this is going to be if the message is about setting a reminder or includes the word reminder. Here I'm going to say if the message is about creating a task or to-do without a date or time specified, because if there's a date or time specified, we want it to be a reminder. So date agnostic tasks will be considered this category. Don't even know if I used that word correctly. And then summary is basically if the message is about generating a summary. So before we trigger this, you can see that the message here is please remind me today at 2 p.m. to do X. If we run this, it should understand that the reminder branch is going to have one object data flowing through it. So what this means is we've got three options, and based on that test, you can see the green line, it's determined that it's a reminder. So this is good. This is what we want. If I changed that text, and we can run another test just to be thorough. So I'll test this. In fact, I'll test the whole event so we don't have to redo it. So I'm going to test the whole event, and I'm going to say, buy a new iPad. At the moment, I'm just apparently buying everything. So you can see it's a task because there was no date, there was no nothing. And then if we do summary, it'll do the same. Now, before I didn't actually show you how the other paths work. I just showed you kind of the reminder and the task. The summary is very cool because it gives you a summary of whatever you want. And we'll get onto that in the build. But now we've essentially properly classified what the message is about. We've determined the outcome that we want. And now we can start building out those separate branches. Now, there's different ways you can do this. Like, for example, if you're really leaning into the Telegram bot, you can just like hard code a prompt to have a certain keyword, and then it will always do that thing. But we want to keep it kind of flexible because we don't want to dive into the code too much. We just want to let AI determine what the best path of action is. So at the moment, we need to start building out these chains. And the first thing we're going to do is create a reminder. And so let's do that. Let's add a reminder, and we're going to add another advanced thing. And here we are going to extract some information. Okay. Now you can use various other nodes, but I found that these are just the easiest to set up. So here we're going to say information extractor. And what we're going to do in this information extractor is paste some text. So here I've just created some text, and it's basically saying I'm going to provide you with a message and the current date, and I want you to determine when this reminder should actually be set based on that. So we can come back here and we can paste it. And this is actually supposed to be an expression, and it's going to come up with an error because we haven't set this up properly. But we can remove this for now. And then we can run the previous triggers so we have some information here. So what we actually need to do is we'll just drag this up for clarity, and we're going to run these again. So I'm just going to start with this, and I'll make it a reminder this time so we can actually feed information to this channel. So I'll just say to go shopping. So we've done, and I'm going to test that. I'm going to test that, test that, test that. It knows it's a reminder, and now we have that information. So the current date and time, I'm going to set here, and the message, I'm going to set there as well. So the prompt itself is this: I will provide you with a current date and time and a message. Your sole task is to analyze the message and, based on its content and context, create an ISO formatted date, the event date, and a formal relevant event name, which is the event name. So now, instead of determining a single path, what we're going to do is we're going to set a schema for the response that we want. And then this AI node will set the appropriate values for each of those things. So if we go back here, you can see that I've said the event date is going to be a string, and I want it to be the extracted date and time in ISO format. And we can actually also make that required. So we'll come back here and we'll set that up again. And so here I'm going to say event name, and it's going to be the extracted date and time in ISO format GMT plus 10, which is my time zone. Then we're going to add another attribute, and this is going to be event title, and no, event name. Okay. And I'll just say it's the extracted event name. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, analyze this, extract an event date, because if I say tomorrow, the date should be tomorrow. If I say next Wednesday, the date should be next Wednesday. And it has to base that on the current time so it knows how to actually format the response. And then the event name is just going to analyze the message and come up with a relevant event name for you. So if we run this, what was my message? Today at 2 p.m. So if we test this step now, a subnode, my bad, we need to connect OpenAI. So we just connect 𝗬𝗏 for now, and now we can actually run this. And the event name is shopping reminder, and I'm not sure why it didn't get the date, but let's test it again. Event name, shopping reminder. Am I not setting something current properly? Oh, I've named these the same thing. That's why. Event date, event name. Okay. There we go. 14 is 2 p.m. Current date's 13th of October. Good to go. So now we've got the information and the date. Now we can start setting up the actual adding of that event to the calendar. So back here, you can see the next step is adding the reminder, and this is using the Google Calendar node. So what we want to do is add that node. And I'm going to say calendar, Google Calendar. This is going to be create an event. I'm going to hook this up. And one thing you should be aware of is how to actually set up and authorize these nodes to actually perform those actions. What you need to do is create a new credential. So I'm going to say create new credential. You need to copy this, and then in your Google Cloud console, we need to create a new credential, and it's going to be an OAuth client ID. So to get here, you go to console.cloud.google.com/API/credentials, and you set up a new OAuth client ID. And the application, I think you can just select web application. The name is going to be N8N tutorial delete, because I'm going to delete this after. And we're going to add that callback that we saved. And we click create. And then it's given us the client ID and the client secret. You copy these, and back here you paste them here. And then what it's going to do is it's going to say sign in with Google. You click the sign in with Google button, and a little pop-up will appear. You authorize it, and then it'll be set up. So I may as well show you how to do it, even though sometimes I forget to delete these things, and I end up with a lot. So it says sign in with Google. You sign in, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to let this thing create events and stuff? And you say yes. So I'm just going to cancel for now. And I'm just going to delete that dummy credential. So once you have set that up, then you can actually begin creating these things. So here we're going to say the operation is create. We're going to add to, in this case, a calendar called AI reminders. And the start time is going to be the event date. And the end time we can also set as the event date. I think we need both. I'm not sure. But here we can actually set our reminders based on when we want to be reminded. So here I can say, okay, send me an email 5 minutes before. Or you can say, show a pop-up 5 minutes before. Either way, you can set custom or you can just use the default. It doesn't really matter. But what this is going to do is create the event. So it's going to create the event, and we can actually give this a test run and just see if it works. And it's worked. And that's awesome. But we haven't set like the title of the event. We've only set the date. So what we need to do is we need to add an additional field, and it's called summary. It's a weird name, but that's the summary. And here we want the summary to be the event name. So we test that step, and I'll just check my Google Calendar, and we can see here it was the shopping reminder. So I've got shopping reminder at 2 p.m. Okay, so that's all working nicely. And it's reminded me already because I said 5 minutes before, and it's 5 minutes before. I said 2 p.m., right? Yeah. So it already reminded me. So that's great. Let's continue. We've set up that. Then we need to prettify the date. And this just means turn it into something nice. So it looks better when we receive the message. So all we need to do here is we're going to add a new data transformation, date and time, format a date. The date we're going to format is the date start, and we're going to format it in a custom format, and the custom format is going to be FF. Now, if you want to format it differently, I believe this formatting module uses 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀, and so you can just pick whatever format you want from this list. So you can have it like this, you can have it like this, you can have it short. So in this case, FF is going to give us a nice short summary of the date and time in this exact format. So if we go back to N8N and we test this step, we can see we got a nice formatted date. So that's awesome. Then what we want to do is build out the response in Telegram, the if, and then the notification. So here, what we want to do is add another module, and this is going to be the Telegram module. And we're going to send a message. Where is send message? Am I blind? Send text message. The credential is going to be this tutorial bot. We're going to send a message to chat ID. Well, we go back and get that chat ID. And the text is going to be whatever we want, really. We can customize this. So I'm going to say event, and I think we can make it bold like that. And we're going to make this an expression. So it's going to be event, and then we're going to pull in the event name. And then in brackets, we're going to put that nice formatted date. So we'll test it. And we come back here and we see event, and it's got shopping reminder at 2 p.m. So that's awesome. Now, one thing we want to do is, I love N8N, but I don't want to see that this message was sent automatically with N8N. I just want the message. So this module is now done. And now we add the if. So we're going to say if where were we? Schema, trigger, string is equal to shortcuts, then it continues, otherwise it stops. So in this case, it should stop because this should be Telegram. So if we test this, there's no output because it's false, and that's good. Now we can add something called a respond to webhook node. So what we need to do is actually come back here, and instead of responding immediately, now we set it to using the respond to webhook node. So what it's going to do, it's going to receive this, it's going to do all the processing, and then it's going to respond, and that will allow us to actually show the notification here in well, on our Mac or on our iPhone, whatever it is. It's not going to work here because I haven't hooked it up, but we can test that to make sure it's all working. So we're going to say respond to webhook, and we're going to respond with text. And this is awesome because we can actually configure exactly what we want. So I'm going to say this is event added, and then we're going to need to this to be true. So what we're going to have to do is come back here, disconnect this, connect this, and run the same flow. So I'm going to test workflow. It's going to respond with nothing, but let's do it anyway. So tutorial test. Remind me to send an email to Jimbo tomorrow at 3 p.m. So it's doing all these things. Invalid expression. The chat ID. Okay, so this is actually a good error meaning that we don't want to set this as dynamic. We want to set this as the actual chat ID that we received back here. And so this is going to be probably in my copy and paste history. Something like that. So we're just hard coding that chat ID because that's your user chat ID. And so if we test this, good to go. And it's kind of good that it stopped because now we can continue here and we can set this up properly. So here we're going to say event added, and then I'm going to get the event name. This will change it to an expression, which it should be. And then I'm just going to do the same thing where I put the nice predefined date here. And this is what's going to respond. So if we go back and check here, we need to add one more thing, which is, I think it's notification, show notification. And we're going to show insert variable contents of URL, and the variable name we can just call it text. It doesn't really matter, and it should show us a notification. So now when we test this in full, we should have this whole flow done. So let's go back here and we're going to test the whole thing. So it's connected here, that's good. It's going to send the Telegram and we should get the notification. So let's test this workflow. Remind me to send an email to Jimbo tomorrow at 4 p.m. There we go. Event added. Reminder. So this is just a way of confirming, first of all, that it's got the right date and that it's actually added to your calendar and that it's good to go. If you don't see these things popping up, you want to make sure that they are. You want to come back and check it out. So here you can say, you can see that it's added the event properly, 4 p.m. tomorrow, which is the 14th. So that is awesome. So this flow is actually done because if I connected this and ran a Telegram scenario where it's asking for a reminder, it would run perfectly. Now what we need to do is we need to set up the task. So we're going to go back here and you can see that I'm adding a task and then I'm just doing the same thing. I'm confirming it. And then if it was sent by the dictation, it's going to show a notification. But if it was just sent by Telegram, then I'll just get the Telegram message. Either way, I've got that log coming into my Telegram and I can continue to check it as we go. So let's move on to this, and we're going to add a very similar module. So I can actually copy this, come back here and paste it. And first thing I'm going to do is just add the OpenAI chat model. I'm going to do this. So that's nice and set up. And here we're going to be extracting a task. And you can see that the reason I copied it is because I just need to change the prompt a bit. So here it's going to say, I will provide you with a message. Your sole task is to analyze the message and based on its content, create a task. We want to delete this. And we would just want to leave this as is for now. Now in the attributes, I'm going to create one attribute that I want this AI node to basically set a value for, and it's going to be task. And the description of this is going to be the extracted task. Now descriptions are important because it actually tells the AI model what you want to set this particular attribute as, this key value pair as. So we can leave that for now because what we need to do is set it up so it's a task. So I'm going to add a new task and it's going to be a task, not a reminder. So I'll test this. Buy a new television. Everything's just buying stuff. That's my tasks. Now you're going to get an error here because I didn't actually test this workflow. You won't, I did. But yeah, we need to actually run the test. So for now, what I'm going to do is, this is fine. We can actually just test the entire workflow. I'll do it again. Buy a new mechanical keyboard. So it's a task, it knows it's a task. Now let's hook it up. And what we've done now is we've just exposed all of the previous data from the nodes. So here we just want to say the message is the message. Okay, so we've got, I'll provide you with message, your sole task is to blah, blah, blah. We test this, it's going to get the task, and the task is to buy a new mechanical keyboard. Now, with short messages like this, we don't necessarily need this, you know, summarization, but if we're doing some long-winded blabbing, we do need it because we want a summarized version of the task. And in the above one, we needed to get the actual date that we want for the event. So it's good to have this here regardless. Also because you don't want, if you say, can you please create a task? We don't want can you please in the task name. We just want the task. And you might have seen that error just pop up that said it timed out. That's because we haven't added this to this workflow. So it's timed out because it was waiting for a response and nothing came. So it's like, well, what the hell? Why didn't you respond to me? So we'll get there, don't worry. What we need to do now is add a task. So I'm using Google Tasks and Google Calendar. You can use anything. That's the beauty of this. You can create really in-depth Notion, Airtable, Glide, automations. I won't get into it, but you can do basically anything, which is just mind-blowing. So here we just want to create a task. Did I click the right one? Create task, yeah, okay. So again, verify your Google Tasks using that credential method. Then we want to add a task. We're going to create the task name, or task list name is going to be AI tasks. This is the list that I'm adding to. And the title of the task is the task that we extracted in the previous node. So we've got this good to go. Now what we need to do is set up the Telegram message. So pretty simple. If my eyes stop watering for no reason, we set up Telegram. And here we're going to, let me just minimize this. We're going to send a text message. Again, the chat ID is that hard-coded chat ID. The credential is going to be the tutorial bot. The text is going to be, well, we need to actually execute this first. So let's run that. So it's added a task. And now we have access to that task information and also the previous nodes. So we can just use, what we want to do is actually use an expression, and we want to say task and then the task, and we can test this and we can see what it's done. So we've added a new task, and again we just want to appreciate N8N but not include the attribution in every single message. So beautiful, we've got that set up, we know it's working. Now we just do the same thing down here. We hook this up. We say if it's equal to shortcuts, and this is coming from the schema, so it's already knows that it's from back here. And then we copy this and paste it, and we hook it up. So we're going to test this. It was indeed triggered by the shortcut. And then if we test this now, nothing will happen because it's not waiting for a response. But we can test the whole workflow now. So let's test the workflow. It's waiting for our shortcut trigger, and we can do here. So what do we need to buy now? Buy a 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀 coffee machine. Okay, it got the name wrong, but we should see the notification pop up, and it says TAS added and nothing. So that's because I set this up incorrectly. So what we're going to do, go back, and we're going to say the task is buy a 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀 coffee machine, which doesn't exist. So now this is actually done. Now we're going to do something a little bit more complex, which is summarizing anything we want. But in this case, we're going to summarize any events for a particular date. And we're going to summarize any tasks that are incomplete. So I could say something like, send me a summary for today. It's going to send all the events that are today, and it's going to send any to-dos that are unchecked as well. So I can do a pulse check on whatever it is I want to get a summary for within my business. I could give me a summary for all the orders that are not shipped today. Bang, it's gonna do what we want. Now, you can build this out in Glide, you can build this out in all different software. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you how to use the nodes in N8N, because it is such a powerful tool. So let's continue doing that. So now we want a summary trigger to happen. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to basically set up a classifier, a data extractor, and then we're going to extract data, and then we're going to have two chains, whatever you call it, flows that then combine and then sends a single summary. So I'm going to copy this. In fact, can I copy both? I have to select it. Copy. Come back here and paste. And I'm going to hook it up. So here, what I'm doing is I'm saying, you will be given a message and today's date in GMT plus 10. Based on that message, you need to create the dates. Create the dates on day before, and day after. Now this is important because we need, as far as I know, we need to specify, if we're getting all events from a calendar, it needs a start and end. Otherwise it just gets like random, not specific data. And then I give it an example. So I say, for example, if today's date is blah, 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 and the message is get me a summary for tomorrow, you would return tomorrow is the on, the day before is today, and the day after is the day after tomorrow. So if I say the date, today's date is the 13th, and I'm asking about tomorrow, I want it to get events on the 14th, which is between 13 and 15. So I'm saying you would return these, and here is the data that you need to analyze: today's date and the message. So what we need to do is re-trigger it, but make sure it's about a summary this time, and then it will kind of run this process. Now this might come up with an error, but it doesn't matter because we just need this to trigger. So let's do it again. Please send a summary of everything I need to do tomorrow. And I forgot to run the test. Please send me a summary of everything I need to do tomorrow. Okay. So it looks like I didn't have to reconfigure any of these variables, which is good. And tomorrow is indeed the 14th because it's the 13th today, which means the day before was this and the day after is this. And I'm just going to turn off this little pop-up. This is something I use. It's a plugin called on a random side tangent, pop clip. And it allows me to like select text and then run a Google search or search on YouTube or capitalize or lowercase it. But it can get a little bit distracting. So I'll just turn that off. And now it's gone. So perfect. We've set that up. Now we need to set up two branches that will happen from here. The first is the calendar branch. And so, okay, yes, it timed out. Why? Because we didn't respond to the webhook. It was just waiting, and nothing came back. That's fine. So we're going to get many events. And the credential we're going to use is Google Calendar. And I'm wondering if I can just delete that other one. Google Calendar account. Delete. Okay. So this is just Google Calendar. We want to get many events from our AI reminders. Now you can obviously change this to be what you need, but we're going to get many from AI reminders, but we're going to set some options. We're going to say after, and this is where it's a little bit confusing. We want to get after the day before, but before the day after. So basically we just want it today. Because after yesterday is today and before tomorrow is today. Because as far as I can see, there's no like on today. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's no on today. So that's why we had to get the before and after variables. So we've got this data, so we can actually test this. And we can see it's got all of these reminders to message people. So it's working. Obviously, we've created a whole bunch of dummy, unnecessary data, but it's working. So let's continue. And what we want to do is prettify the date, set the schema, and combine the events into a list, because we want to just send a text summary. We don't need separate items. So what I'm going to do is, I know I said I wasn't going to copy paste stuff or just go through it, but we know what prettifying the date is and we know how to set the schema. I will dive into the combining the events. So we come back here and we paste it and we hook it up. So what this is going to do is it's going to prettify the start date of all of the events. So if I come in here, we're getting the JSON start time. So all I did was set this as an expression and drag in the date time. And again, we're just using custom format. We want it as FF. And the output field name, we're going to say output it as formatted date. So if I test this, we're going to see we've got these nice variables that are formatted. And this was all of those events that I showed you previously. If we look at the JSON, that's all of these events. So that's good. Now we need to set up the schema. And we just need to change this we want the schema and we want the Google Calendar summary. So what I'm doing here is we've got all those events, we've formatted the dates for those events, and now we're just gonna combine them into like one item. So we're gonna say the event name, which is the summary, and then the nice pretty date. So if we run this, you can see we've got a list, and this one has no name, but we've got a list of the reminders, the events, and their associated time. So now we need to combine all of those separate 6 or 7 items or whatever it was into just one that is like a list separated by a new line. Because if we run this, you can see there's 6 items. What we want to do is get those 6 items, turn them into one, just a list. So we use a node called summary. Okay, so we use a node called summarize. And what we want to summarize, the way we want to configure this is we want to concatenate. Okay, it's going to start with count probably. You select concatenate the event item, which is what we just set in the previous node. So if you have a look back here, we're saying event item is this little list item. And we want to concatenate that, and we want to separate them by a new line. So you can see if I test this step, now we have the list of all the events, and they are separated by a new line when we eventually send the message or do whatever we need to do with it. So that's good. What we need to do now is add something called a merge node. Now this merge node is different from like combining and concatenating, because what it does is it waits till all inputs have provided data and then it continues. So this is important because now we are going to add a new node and we're going to call this tasks. And we're going to get many tasks. And we're going to get many from AI tasks, but we're only going to get the ones, okay, we don't want deleted and we don't want completed. We just want incomplete, non-deleted tasks. So now I hook this up and we can now begin building out this flow, and then this will wait until this is done and this is done, because this might be very quick. This might take a little bit of time. And so we don't want to continue till we got all data on hand, and then we can run the last bit of the automation. So here, we're just going to, I'll just copy these two. And it's the same sort of thing, right? We're just defining a schema. So we're saying task item is the task separated by this. Now it's coming up gray because we haven't run this, but let's test this step. We've created a task. There's 3 items in that list. We test this step and it failed. It should work. Yeah. So it's created these tasks. And again, we're just setting task item as a little dash and then the task. Okay. And this is just getting the title from the task and putting it after a little dash. And then we combine, just like we did with the event items, we're going to combine the task item, which is all of those tasks, and we're going to separate it by a new line. So if we run this, we have this, and then a new line, this, and then this. Perfect. Now we hook this up. Ooh. We hook this up. And so what this is going to do is it'll run these two in parallel and only continue from here once it's got both pieces of information. Now, if we run this, it's going to create another event, but no, it's not, because it's only getting. So that's cool. Let's run this and I'll show you what it does. You see how quick that first one was, the bottom one, but it waited till the top one ran, and now we have 2 items. We don't want 2 items. We want one message we're going to send. So we summarize. And this time, we're going to summarize. But we're not going to aggregate by count. We're going to concatenate. And we want to... Wait, is this correct? No. We want to, sorry, we want to use a different, the merge we need to set up differently. So the merge here, in this case, creates 2 results. You can see here, it creates the event item, the concatenated event item, and the concatenated task item. We actually want it to create one item that we can more easily reference. Now, the reason we want to do this is because if there's 2 items, it's going to run whatever follows twice for each item. But we don't want that. We want it just to run once with the combined data. So instead of appending, we need to combine. And we don't want to combine by matching fields because these are different. We want to combine by position. So there's going to be 2 inputs. We're just going to combine them into one output. And you'll see here that we have a slight error from the previous, but if we test it again, now it's 1 item. So there's 2 columns, but it's 1 item. Before it was 2 columns, 2 rows, which means there's 2 items. Now we've got 1. So that's perfect. Now, after we've merged, we can set up the rest of the flow. So we can send a message. Whoops. We can send a message. And I'll paste this here. So these are just the same. The reason I'm copy and pasting, we've set them up before. You know what this is. So we plug that in. And here, we're going to, this is going to be the N8N tutorial bot. We're going to send a message to the chat ID. And we're going to say, we're going to use an expression as the message. We're going to say events is this and tasks is this. Now what this and this is the two fields that were combined from the previous merge node. So we drag the event item in and we put that under a little events title. And then we drag the task item in and we put it under a task title. Okay, so when I test this, I should actually already receive a notification. So here we've got the summary of everything we need to do, which is basically just buying stuff and replying. So we've set that up. Then we just have another if statement. And we want to say if the schema, I think this is not working because we haven't triggered it yet. So if the trigger is equal to shortcuts, then continue. And what we're going to continue with is, we don't really want to include all of these things in the notification. We can just say summary sent. You can if you want, but at the moment, I think we're actually good to go. So what I'm going to do is delete all the random events and stuff and then run this again. So give me 1 minute to do that and we'll get that going. All right, so I have cleared out the dummy calendar events. I have cleared out the dummy tasks. Now we have this beautiful automation and we can begin testing it. The last thing I want to do is just rehook up that module. I'm going to save this and we can run a test. So let's do a test, and I'm going to use both Telegram and our dictation tester. So test workflow. Create a reminder today at 4 p.m. to send a message to Doris. Beautiful. 4 p.m. today, send a message to Doris. She's going to get that message. Let's do it for a task, but this time let's use Telegram. So I'm going to use Telegram on my phone. Actually, I'll use it on the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. I need to buy a new rug for my office for better soundproofing. Send that. And I forgot to test it, so it's not going to do anything. Although, is it? No. Yeah, I forgot to test it. We'll delete that. You don't need to do this when it's live. This is just for testing. So let's test the workflow again. And we got it, even though I deleted the original message because it was backlogged. So now let's do the last test. And this time I'll use the dictation again to send me a summary, and it should include those two things. So we test workflow. Send me a summary of everything I need to do today. Summary sent. That's the reminder we set, and that's the to-do we set. So that is pretty awesome. What you need to do before you go and start sending this thing messages, we need to make it active. And then we need to adjust the URL that we're sending the webhook to from our Shortcuts app. So we need to now copy the new webhook URL and go to Shortcuts. And it's essentially the same, just without the word test in it. So we save that, even though it's automatically saved. And now that this is live, we should be able to continue to use it. So I can rename this to tutorial live. And now we can, close this down and navigate away, but I'll just stay in the chat here and send another, maybe a reminder. Remind me to go shopping at Harris Farm tomorrow at 11 a.m. So it's going to run in the background, hopefully. And then we've got it, 11 a.m. tomorrow, shopping at Harris Farm. So that's the tutorial, guys. A lot of content there. If I've missed anything, let me know. But yeah, it's such a powerful thing. Even just realizing that you can set up these shortcuts that can do like basically anything. There's so much you can do. You can take a screenshot, it can translate it to text, and then it can send it to the bot, and you can do whatever with the bot. You can create cold emails based on a website. You can automatically scrape websites. You can do just about anything. But with this tutorial, what I wanted to show you is that if you set this up, it's actually really, really useful. This is one of the few applications of AI that I'm getting a kick out of at the moment, because this is the stuff that is extremely handy, and it's so accessible by just setting up these shortcuts for voice notes or for Telegram. I have a log of everything I need to do. It's very, very cool. So if you want to learn how to do more stuff like this, I suggest you join Low Code Masters. There's a link in the description. You'll have access to all of the code that I use here. You can actually just copy and paste the template directly, get it up and running, tweak it. I'm there for tech support. I'll usually record videos for people requesting tech support. So it's a really brilliant fellowship of low coders that are all helping each other level up, and we're building very cool stuff that not only levels up your tech skills, but can help you earn substantial income. So without blabbing on too much, join Low Code Masters if you're interested. Otherwise, follow this tutorial, try and get something up and running. Share what you've built, and I'll be interested to see what you can actually do with this. I know I'm going to continue to expand this to do very, very handy tasks, but until then, I'll see you in the next video.